Romeo and Juliet begins with the prologue, as so many things do. Two households, both alike in dignity. In fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge, break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. And basically the prologue goes into and delves into and kind of explains the entirety of the plot before you've even seen the play. The point of the chorus was kind of like a video game character who tells you exactly what's going to happen and why and where. So basically it goes on to explain that two lovers, two star-crossed lovers, whatever the heck that means, are going to fall in love and then they're going to die. And when they die, it's going to stop the fighting going on between their families. And then we go into Act 1, Scene 1. So when Scene 1 starts out, you basically got these four guys. Two Capulets and two Montagues walking through the streets of Verona. And this feller, one of the Capulets, does something extremely rude and offensive, which they would actually portray on stage. He bites his thumb, which was basically at that time the equivalent of flipping somebody off today. And this gets them both fighting. And during this fighting, along come Tybalt and Benvolio. And Benvolio's like, hey, quit fighting everybody, this is dumb. And Tybalt's like, hey, I challenge you to a duel. And right about this time, in comes Capulet himself, and Lady Capulet. And Capulet's like, hey, I'm joining the fight. Nope, you are not joining that fight. Aw, dang it. And the same thing happens over here with Montague. And so then the fighting really gets worse, and it starts heating up, and in comes the prince. Not the 80s guy, this guy. He's basically in charge of the town, as could be understood by his name, the prince. And he basically just says, hey, quit fighting. This is the third time. Seriously, I'm not doing my job right. But anyway, if this happens again, whoever's involved in the fighting is getting executed. And so everybody kind of just leaves awkwardly now. Except for these three. Benvolio, Lady Montague, and Montague. And these two basically say to Benvolio, hey, Romeo's been acting really weird lately. He's been like all emo, staying up all night, keeping the windows shut, keeping his room dark, dressing dark. Honestly, try to figure out what's wrong with him. Okay, bye. And so, in walks Romeo, conveniently. And Benvolio is like, hey, what's wrong with you, man? And Romeo explains that he's in love with this girl, Rosaline. You never actually see Rosaline, but we're going to portray her here because it makes it a lot easier to picture everything. And he's basically saying that he's hitting on Rosaline, and Rosaline's like, heck nah, I'm staying chaste. And that's why Romeo's sad. And then scene 1 ends. Scene 2 begins in the Capulet household, when Paris, a relative of the prince, walks in and says, hey, I want to marry your daughter Juliet. And they're kind of like, heck no. She's 12 years old, man. What's wrong with you? Hey, wait a minute. This could be good. We could get on the prince's good side if we're related by marriage. And so they're like, yeah, you can, but you have to win her heart tonight at the big party we're throwing. Okay, I can do that. Okay, bye. And so, in a great idea, they give the letters of who is going to be there to an illiterate guy, Peter. And Peter, as anyone who's illiterate told to read something would be, is confused. And he runs into Romeo and Benvolio, who are just also conveniently walking there. And they offer to help out Peter. And Peter thanks them by saying, hey, you guys can come to the party tonight, as long as you're not Montagues. This is some irony. He doesn't realize they're Montagues. But you know, it helps the plot. And so they, after Peter leaves, plot to meet new girls at the party so that Romeo can take his mind off of Rosaline. And yeah, scene 3. And thus we begin scene 3. And here we discover there might be some mama-daughter issues here. Because she's like, hey, nurse, I'm going to talk to Juliet. okay, I'm gonna let you talk to Juliet. And the nurse does, and eventually she just starts telling this big long story about how her daughter was lost in an earthquake, and now she takes care of Juliet, and she remembers a bunch of things. And then, hey, this is going on way too long. We didn't need to hear all of this. Just tell her the plan, alright? And then she leaves. And the nurse tells Juliet, so tonight tomorrow there's going to be a big old party, and the prince is going to be there, and you might end up marrying him. Yeah, you can imagine how awkward that conversation was. Oh yeah, and it's even more awkward because she agreed. Alright, I'm gonna just... Sorry about that, you might be able to hear that. We're gonna try this anyway. So, scene 4. Romeo, Mercutio, and Benvolio. Oh yeah, this is Mercutio. He's a pretty cool dude who just says whatever's on his mind. And I mean whatever. And so these three are heading to the Capulet party. And Mercutio goes on this long and extremely weird speech about Queen Mab. And it's all because he's kind of trying to poke as much fun at Romeo as he can about Rosaline. And Romeo knows deep down Rosaline's going to be there, and that was kind of his reason he was going to go to this party anyway. So, yeah, the three of them go there. After Mercutio spends like 4 minutes talking about a weird fairy. And so here we are at the Capulet party. And man, is it going great. Everybody's having fun. Even Romeo and the other awkward Montagues. And then in walks Tybalt. And as we saw in scene 1, Tybalt hates all things Montague with a fiery passion. In fact, he was kind of one of the main instigators of the last fight. So when he walks in, things get ugly. He's immediately noticing Romeo, Benvolio, and Mercutio, and he's like, hey, those guys, they're Montagues. They shouldn't be at our party. I say we beat them up or throw them out or do something to them. And then Capulet is just kind of like, hey man, aren't we trying to make peace with them? Didn't we learn, literally yesterday, that if we fight again, we're all gonna get killed? Dude, go away from the party. Okay, fine. So he just kind of leaves. And now we're gonna start ignoring everyone else at the party because something is about to happen. Something very, very important. Romeo notices Juliet, and the two fall almost instantly in love. Why? I don't know. Does anyone? No. But they do. And they kiss. And these figures weren't really drawn to look right when they kiss. It just looks like they're whispering in the other's ear. But they kissed. Trust me. And they're like dancing and falling in love. And then Capulet's just kind of like, hey, the party's over, everybody. Go home. And so they do. But he's like, wait a minute. I don't know you. I don't know you either. But instead of asking her, he asks the nurse. And he's like, hey, who's that? Oh, that's Juliet, daughter of Capulet. Nuts. And then he leaves. And then Juliet's like, hey, what? Who was that? That was Romeo, son of Montague. Nuts. And then she heads up to her room. And then Act 2 begins.